Section 3.3. Closing the poll site as an ED table inspector. Overview of closing the poll site, page 81. Polls close at 9 p.m. However, any voters in line at 9 p.m. are still entitled to vote. If you have a line at your door, the police officer will make sure no one else joins the line after 9 p.m. Do not begin closing the poll site until all voters have finished voting and the polls close. Please wait for the coordinator to confirm the poll site is ready to be closed before you begin shutting off or unplugging any voting equipment. Overview of closing the poll site, page 81. 1. The first step of closing the poll site is for the scanners to begin printing election results report tapes. Next, the portable memory device, PMD, from the scanners are uploaded by the coordinator and then given to the police officer in a large yellow bag for round number 1 pickup. Police round number 1 pickup. Large yellow scanner voting record bag. First 2 pages of election night PMD return form, ENR form. Overview of closing the poll site, page 81. 2. All poll workers have assigned duties for closing the polls. The BMD cradle point must be the last station to close. When you have completed your duties, ask the coordinator if you may be of assistance elsewhere in the poll site. 3. The coordinator will make sure that all final items are prepared and packed for the police officer round number 2 pickup. All other supplies are returned to the ED supply carts. BMD cradle point can now be powered off and unplugged. All BMD supplies are returned to the BMD cart. Overview of closing the poll site, page 81. 4. After everyone has finished their closing procedures and have signed their timesheets, the coordinator will dismiss poll workers. You are not to leave until the coordinator dismisses you. Police round ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site, page 88. 1. Just before 9 p.m., make sure you have the following items ready at or near your ED table. Void paper ballot envelope. Valid emergency ballots envelope. Poll worker special ballots and absentee ballots envelope. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site, page 88. 1. Also at the ready, partially used ballot packages envelope, large A envelope, ED supply cart police envelope. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site, page 88. 1. Also at the ready, continued. Excess emergency ballots envelope, ED forms booklet, return of canvas, 2 forms. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site, page 88. 1. Also at the ready, continued. Ballot transmittal sheet, orange return bag, gray transport bag, pad of white paper seals, filled out and completed before 9 p.m. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site, page 88. 2. Complete the ballot transmittal sheet after the last voter has voted and left the poll site. Fill in number of ballots used from each package. Put a check mark for any package completely used. Put a 0 for any package not used. Add up the total number of ballots used. Note, subtract number of used ballots from total number of ballots to get number of unused ballots. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site, page 89. 2. Ballot transmittal completion. When finished with ballot transmittal sheet, sign and place in gray transport bag. Put all shrink-wrapped unused packages of scannable ballots and all unused affidavit ballots in the ED supply cart. Any opened packages of scannable ballots go into the partially used ballot envelope. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site, page 89. 3. Complete return of canvas. Complete 2 identical copies using both forms. You are accounting for scannable ballots only. No need to memorize. Steps 1 through 10 will guide you, found on pages 92 through 93. ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 90. Samples of the results report tape number 1 from the scanner is shown on page 90. Look for ballots for code in the Ballot Status Accounting Report top portion of the results report tape number 1 and your ED table specific ballot style number. Every scanner will have its own results report tape number 1 labeled with the scanner letter at the top. Review all tapes to gather your tally for your return of canvas forms. ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 91. Sample of the return of canvas is shown on page 91. ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 92. Step 1. Record the ballot count for your ballot style number from Scanner A Results Report Tape number 1 and write down in Section 1 of your return of canvas. Repeat for all scanners in the poll site. Total the count from all scanners and then transfer this total from Section 1 to Section 2, line D. ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 92. Step 2. Count all unused ballots and then enter total in Section 2, line A. You can use the ballot transmittal sheet to help you get this total. The ballot ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 92. Step 3. Empty the void paper ballot envelope and separate the void affidavit ballots from the void scannable ballots. Count the number of void scannable ballots and enter the number on the front of the void ballot envelope. Now, ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 92. Step 4. Make sure you have transferred the correct amount from Section 1 totals onto Section 2, line D. Step 5. Empty the valid emergency ballot envelope and count the number of valid ballots, if any. If none, enter 0 in Section 2, line E. ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 92. Step 6. Add lines A through E and enter total for Section 2. This total should match the start of day total. If not, have another inspector add the numbers again. Step 7. Answer yes or no for does Section 2 total match start of day total, last box of Section 2. Sample of completed return of canvas. ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 93. Step 8. Hand tally ballots from Step 5, if any unscannable valid emergency ballots. Transfer the totals from the ED Forms booklet to the back of each return of canvas. Replace the ballots in the valid emergency ballot envelope and seal with a signed white paper seal. Page from ED Forms booklet. Return of canvas, back. ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 93. Step 9. Enter the same numbers to complete the second copy of the return of canvas form. Step 10. 2 inspectors, a bipartisan team, must sign both return of canvas forms and give them to the coordinator. Return of canvas, 2 forms. ED Table Inspector Job. Closing the poll site, page 93. 4. The return of canvas form is now complete, 2 copies. 5. Empty the affidavit ballots only envelope, large A. Count sealed ballot envelopes. enter number on envelope, return ballot envelopes, and seal with signed white paper seal. Sealed affidavit ballot envelopes. Large A envelope. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Sealed poll worker special ballot envelopes must be signed on the front by the voter and then on the back, signed and dated by both ED table inspectors. Poll worker special ballot envelope, front. Poll worker special ballot envelope, back. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Poll workers do not sign sealed absentee ballot envelopes. Only the voter signature is needed on a sealed absentee ballot envelope on the back. Absentee return envelope. Absentee ballot envelope, front. Absentee ballot envelope, back. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Page 93. 6. Open poll worker special ballot and absentee ballot return envelope and count the number of sealed envelopes inside. Write the number of sealed special poll worker ballots and absentee ballots on the envelope and seal with a signed white paper seal. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Page 93. 7. Place used, open ballot packages into the partially used ballot packages envelope and seal with a signed white paper seal. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Page 94. 8. Be sure to sign the certificate in the back of the affidavit ballot and court order log before placing in the gray transport bag. Poll worker certificate. Gray transport bag. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Page 94. 9. Pack the gray transport bag. Signed assistance challenge oaths. Signed court orders. Completed voter registration forms. Ballot transmittal sheet. Completed referral slips, brought in by voters. Affidavit ballot and court order logbook. Close gray transport bag with white plastic tie. Gray transport bag. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Page 94. 10. Pack orange ED return bag. Valid emergency ballots envelope. Special ballots envelope. Excess ballots envelope. Void paper ballot envelopes. Affidavit ballot, large A envelope. Used ballot packages envelope. Gray transport bag. Close orange ED return bag with white plastic tie. Orange ED return bag. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Page 94. 11. Set aside the return of canvas forms, orange ED return bag, ED forms booklet, and ED police envelope. Return of canvas, 2 forms. Orange ED return bag, ED forms booklet, ED police envelope. 12. Repack all remaining supplies, except those listed in number 11, into ED supply cart. This includes ED supply envelope, unopened ballot packages, blue table display, sample ballot poster, and ED-AD sign. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Page 94. 13. Pack up e-poll book and accessories into the lime green case the same way it was when you found it in the morning. Place a red seal from the ED police envelope on the e-poll book case. Place lime green case back into ED supply cart. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Page 95. 14. Lock and seal the supply cart with a red seal from the ED police envelope. 15. Put the key back in the police envelope. 16. Complete timesheet in ED forms booklet. 17. Sign certification in ED forms booklet. Timesheet. Certification. ED table inspector job. Closing the poll site. Page 95. 18. Take the following to the coordinator. Orange ED return bag. ED forms booklet. Coordinator will sign receipt in the ED Forms booklet and inspector removes and keeps it. ED Police envelope. Return of canvas, 2 forms. Notice of work envelope. 19. Do not leave the poll site unless dismissed by the coordinator. ED Inspector receipt. Let's take our quiz for Section 3.3, Closing the poll site as an ED Table Inspector. Click Next to continue. One. The first step in the return of canvas is to please refer to page 92 in the basic manual for additional information. Click on the image to the right to zoom in on the referenced section from the basic manual. A. Count the voided scannable ballots. B. Locate your ballots. 1. The first step in the return of canvas is to please refer to page 92 in the basic manual for additional information. Click on the image to the right to zoom in on the referenced section from the basic manual. A. Count the voided scannable ballots. B. Locate your ballot style number in the Ballots for Code section. C. Write down the number of voters you have served that day. D. Write down the number of affidavit ballots for the day. You did not choose the correct response. Please try. That's right. You chose the correct response. Two. At closing, the e-poll book goes into the lime green case and then into the ED supply cart. Please refer to page 94 in the basic manual for additional information. Click on the image to the right to zoom in on the referenced section from the basic manual. A. True. B. False. That's right. You chose the correct response. Great job! You have successfully completed the quiz. Click Next below to continue. Congrats! You've reached the end of this module. Please click on Exit Activity above to